Welcome into Making the Leap. We are so excited to have you with us today. We have a guest with us that I have personally been looking forward to for quite some time. Kind of one of my all-time
heroes of sorts.
Yeah. Like that's a good.
She is.
Yeah, she really is.
She's younger than us, but a hero.
She is a former NCAA swimmer. She has made a name for herself on the news. You've seen her around. Riley Gaines is who we're going to be speaking with today.
Who, until she got to the University of was it on the University of Pennsylvania campus, Riley? I welcome you in, because if I retell your story, I'll screw it up. Welcome to Making the Leap.
Where this all took place, where kind of I was thrusted into this position that I'm in now, our 2022 NCAA championships actually took place at Georgia Tech. That's kind of where all of this story started. But Leah Thomas, who of course is formerly Will Thomas, he swam for University of Pennsylvania. I swam for University of Kentucky.
And it was there that everyone understands now, and we know now well, that he ends up beating you, not by much. He was not much of a male swimmer, but now acting as a female swimmer, beat you by just a whisker. And at that time, you and I have talked a couple of times on my radio show, at that time, there really was no one speaking out about this. And I think that was maybe when you'd finally had it. Is that about right?
Yeah, I'll tell you kind of what, really the how of how I got here. First of all, he didn't beat me. We tied, which is really rare when you're swimming. You know, we raced in the 200 freestyle. We dove off the blocks. We swam 8 laps. We touched the wall at the end. I look up at the scoreboard, and we had went the exact same time, down to the 100th of a second, which, I mean, you're racing for a minute and 40 seconds, and not even 1/100th separated us. We tied. And so I get out of the water, go behind the awards podium, where the NCAA official looks at both Thomas and myself. Thomas, who's towering over me at 6'4", which, might I mention also, the year before, he swam 3 years on the men's team at University of Pennsylvania before deciding to switch to the women's team. The year before, competing against the men, he ranked 462nd at best. And of course, in the women's category, won a national title, meaning the fastest woman, air quotes, in the country, beating out Olympians, beating out American record holders. I mean, seriously, the most impressive female swimmers this world has ever seen by body lengths. But anyways, we touch the wall, tie, get out of the water, go behind the awards podium. The official looks at both Thomas and myself, Thomas towering over me at 6'4", and says, "Great job, you two, but you tied. And we only have one trophy, so we're going to give the trophy to Leah. Sorry, Riley, you don't get a trophy." And
What?
I was so taken aback by this. Wasn't this everything that Title IX was passed to prevent from happening? And so I asked the question that no one dared ask all season. Of course, we thought it. We asked it amongst ourselves in secrecy and in whispers, but I said, okay, why? Why are you adamant on giving this trophy to a man? In the women's 200 freestyle, I know we tied. I know we don't necessarily account for ties, but what's the thought process here? And this official, he didn't know what to say. They didn't give him a script of what to say. And so he looked at me and, stumbles on his words, and he's, we're just doing this in chronological order. To which I said, okay, do you mean alphabetical? Because G comes before T. Otherwise, I'm not too sure what you're being chronological about. And I'll tell you what, I actually appreciate his honesty, because he then looked at me and said, "Riley, we've been advised that when pictures are being taken, it's crucial Leah holds the trophy. Again, you can pose with this trophy, but you give yours back. Leah takes the trophy home, end of story." And the crazy thing is, when he told me this official, his eyes sunk in. He was saddened. I could tell he didn't even believe what he was telling me. Clearly, they had been forced to say that from the administration. As he said, they'd been advised that that was what had to happen. And so in terms of, I guess, the how I got here, that's what thrusted me over the edge. Because up until this point, of course, all season, we knew what was happening was wrong in regards to the competition and the locker room and the silencing and different things. But it wasn't until this official reduced everything we had worked our entire lives for down to a photo op to validate the feelings and the identity of a male at the expense of our own, That's when I was done waiting for someone else, because up until this point, I really was. I thought someone else would stand up for us. I thought surely a coach would, or surely someone within the NCAA, someone's dad would come down there and yank this man out of our locker rooms. I thought someone who was supposed to be protecting us would protect us. But then, of course, it hit me. How in the world could we expect someone to protect us if we weren't even willing to protect ourselves? And that's when I decided that I would be taking a stand. Of course, I didn't know what that looked like. I didn't know what that meant for me, or how that would change the trajectory of my life. I was supposed to be in dental school. And so by no means did I prepare, or did I feel prepared. I still don't really feel prepared for what I was doing, but I realized if God calls us, he equips us. He doesn't call the equipped, he equips the called. And so I only feel as if God, of course, has his hand on all of it. I think the divine intervention of the tie and how everything went down, I'll use the word perfect. Of course, it's unfortunate, but it couldn't have happened in a more perfect way to highlight the concerns that so many of us have that now are reality.
Riley, the collegiate scene where this happened to you, as a younger person, I mean, I don't know, I think I've spoken with some of your teammates who also have younger sisters. I know you have a younger sister. Did you see this coming when you were competing in high school, or was this new to you in college?
I didn't see this coming until the week that it happened. I mean,
Oh,
seriously,
really? Okay.
this is never something. Okay, I'll tell you what. In swimming, my sport, we saw this happen the other way before. Okay, we saw a female at Harvard go by the name of her name is Skylar Baylor. We saw Skylar, again, a woman vying to identify as a man and vying to compete in the men's division. Okay, I saw this happen and I knew that it was not something, of course, that I necessarily supported, but I didn't see the problem with it because no one was necessarily at jeopardy in terms of, fairness and competition other than Skylar, but that's what she had chosen to do. So I didn't see the problem with it, but I never for a second thought this would occur the other way. And I'll tell you, if I would have known in, high school, middle school, elementary school, that I would be competing against men in college, I would have quit my sport. People say that sports are about camaraderie and it's about, setting goals and all those frou-frou fun things, which, yes, that is, of course, those are benefits to playing a sport. But for me, playing a sport was about winning. And had I looked into the future and seen that I'd be competing against men, I would not have played my sport.
Wow. What do you know? And I'll shut up, and Christine, I'm sure wants to jump in. My last question for you, at least in the immediate, is what do you know today of kids who are competing in swimming? And, this show focuses on people exploring alternatives in education if they're not particularly happy where they are in their K through 12 public education. As I said, I've talked to some of your teammates, former teammates. I think your little sister also swims. I don't know if she's in public school or not, but what is your view of it today? And do you encourage private competitive swimming outside of a K through 12 setting to avoid this mess, or how do you view it all?
Well, first and foremost, I'll start by saying this issue is rampant. The amount of messages that I get from female athletes, from parents, from coaches who are dealing with this, that's why I feel so passionately about defending it, because by no means is what myself and my teammates and my competitors, by no means is what we went through unique. It's happening all the time. And I could read you message after message after message, seriously, that I get daily. So it's a lot broader than just swimming. And I will say, kind of in terms of what I think needs to happen, one, we need administrators to stop being spineless. Of course, that includes the NCAA, but that includes school board members, that includes parents. We need these people to be willing to defend their daughters, defend these people who, again, it's their job to protect these girls, and they're failing miserably in terms of what I think female athletes can do. We need to see a boycott. I hate to say it because, look, when I was faced with this, I didn't choose to take that route. I still competed. But now seeing how many girls this is affecting and being in the position that I'm in, and again, getting the messages daily, these messages from girls who, and parents, moms who are in tears watching their daughters be obliterated in their sport and knowing they're being exploited in a locker room. I see how many are being harmed by this movement, specifically women, specifically children. And so I think a boycott in terms of, you are competing against a man, you get on the blocks, you don't go. That's what we need to see. And it doesn't have to be executed by just females. We could have male athletes boycott. That's the quickest and most effective way to say enough is enough. We are saying no. Again, I know that's easier said than, and I know that it's unfortunate that women should have to compromise anything to play the sport that they love. But I think it's a quick way to say we're not having it anymore.
When you are, I guess I look at things now, we have an 18-year-old, a 17-year-old, and a 15-year-old. So we have 2 boys and a girl. And I am constantly looking at the 3 of them in terms of how do I advise them going forward? They're about to head into the world, so to speak. They're not too much younger than you in relative terms. And so I'm curious, what is something that you would say to them in terms of their faith? What can they do spiritually, whether boys, whether girls? If you were talking to a room full of this 16 to 25-year-olds group, that they're the ones kind of coming up next. You guys are the ones that are behind us taking, you're about to move into these positions. What's your spiritual advice to them? You made a really good point with equipping the call. That's a really good point. And so I'm curious what you would say to them.
I love this question because it's not one that I get to answer all the time, but it is a big part in what keeps me grounded, what keeps me moving forward. It's a big part in what this issue is altogether. I believe a lot of the cultural issues, actually, of course, all of the cultural issues that we're seeing plague this country, it's spiritual warfare, without a doubt. I mean, the Bible tells us, Paul specifically, several points in Acts and Romans and different places throughout the Bible, he warns us that we will reach a time where evil is seen as moral and bitter as sweet and dark as light, and it's undeniable that that's what we're going through. And so my advice to a group of especially younger people, Generation Z as they call us, as I mentioned previously, you can't wait until you're directly impacted to take a stand. That's how we got here. And if we all did that, it would be too late.
Riley,
as I mentioned,
may I jump in on that and just say,
please.
Can it be as small as not participating in this mixed messaging pronoun stuff? Just refusing to participate. Is it something that simple, maybe?
Of course. And that's the beauty of it. We really are a body of Christ. Okay. And so not everyone has to take the same actions to taking a stand. Some of us are the mouths, some of us are the hands, some of us, I've always been a mouth, my poor parents and my poor husband.
We're glad you are.
Yeah, now my parents weren't when I was in high school.
Amen. I get that. I feel that in my bones.
But we're a body of Christ. And so certainly we have different roles, but to not answer our calling is to disobey. A compromise between right and wrong is wrong, always. And so absolutely, I think there are different measures to taking a stand, but before anything, of course, live a Christ-like life. But secondly, stand firm for the truth. It's really, if you think about what God's definition of true love really is, his definition of love, those words are synonymous, truth and love. It is loving to say the truth. To lie or deceive or affirm delusions or manipulate, who does that sound like? It sounds like God's opposition, and that's what we're seeing, again, happen all across this country in academia. We're seeing it in the media. We're seeing it in corporate America. We're even seeing it in we're seeing this manipulation and deceptiveness. And so absolutely, I think it is loving to say the truth. That's what love is.
You're fairly newly married. I don't know if you have intention of having children, and that's a personal question. I don't mean to pry, but if in fact you should or do or want to, do you imagine how you might raise them and educate them? Do you have any thought? Have you ever thought about that, or is it way too early to even talk about something like that?
Well, I will tell you, I certainly want children. If it's up to me, I could have like 6 or 7 or something. I come from a lot of siblings and such, and so I certainly want a lot of kids. And so, with the direction that institutions are going now, specifically higher education, the way I'm seeing costs, I mean, I can't believe people pay for a degree. It's like, what in the world, especially Ivy Leagues? It's so bad. It's so bad. I can list example after example after example. Just when I went to Penn State last week, there was a professor who sent out an email to her entire class saying, it's confirmed that Riley Gaines will be on campus today, and a quick wiki search will tell you that she's anti-trans. Don't go to her event and provide her any more attention to her hateful messages she's espousing. Because I know how traumatic her presence is, we will be having no class today. Also, I wanted to let you guys know that the Coming Out Day celebration with the Sexual Gender Center, whatever, is today. And so I hope to see you guys there.
I saw that post. I saw that post today, and I know it happened before, but when I saw that, I was taking it and I thought, I cannot believe. First of all, we have friends and family. We know a lot of people actually at Penn State, and it makes my skin crawl knowing that it's so one-sided on that outlook and the way that professor was speaking of things. But I know for a fact with our 18-year-olds and our 17-year-olds, they are sitting in similar positions. It's probably our 18-year-old, it is just as much out there like that. Our 17-year-old, it's probably a little bit more subtle. But man, I just think, can we just figure out how to do a college degree? If that's what you want to do, let's homeschool that bad boy too. Let's make sure.
Homeschool college.
It's like, how can we justify? And we're going to have to figure out ways. That's why I'm very interested in your opinion, your age, your stance on this, because we're not too far behind sending our kids out into that. We're doing it now. And right now, all we can do is keep saying, like, focus on the truth, like you said, focus on things like what's happening, what happened in Acts. That's important. But to spend all that money to have a woman say, as a professor, that woman to say, I'll be here if you need something, if you can't handle a little bit of that conflict, I just thought, what happened? What has happened in our society that is where we're at, that 18, 19, 20-year-olds are curled up in the fetal position because somebody is speaking about something they don't like? Get over yourself. I was floored.
Totally.
I was floored by that when you shared that.
So frustrating. It's so frustrating to see what's happening in the Middle East between Israel and Palestine. I mean, in other places of the world, okay, that actually have real problems.
Yeah.
And here in the U.S., we're wasting time, we're wasting money, we're wasting resources talking about if men should be in women's sports or this whole pronoun nonsense. I mean, it really.
Or don't worry, you don't have to go to class.
Yeah.
Totally. All the stuff in the Middle East, for me, it was a big eye opener, because I think here in the U.S., we've reached this point where people want to be victims. They want to be marginalized. They want to be oppressed, which is a super weird mentality to have in a marginalized group, if in reality it's so bad like they claim it is. But I think because we have now found a way for less accountability and less responsibility, which are things I guess people are vying for. They don't want to be held responsible for anything. They don't want to owe someone something. They want to be owed something. And again, we're seeing that among professors. We're seeing that. I mean, it's everywhere. And it just has to make you scratch your head. Why are we here? As I mentioned, I think it's spiritual warfare. But two, I think these institutions, and again, corporate America, the medical profession, they're following money. Of course they are. And they have now found that the quickest way to avoid lawsuits or to keep your federal funding is to abolish our freedoms, basically, and to take a stand in support of the lunacy that's happening all around us. We saw Bud Light, right? They lost $27 billion, and their next commercial was a big burly man on a motorcycle with a camo can.
Riley, we have a lot of younger parents, older than you, younger than us, and they've got kids that are, let's call them elementary, middle school. Are you seeing a shift, particularly in young women, K through 12 age girls and women? Are attitudes shifting? Are they being encouraged and taught by their parents to stand up as you have, or do you still see a lot of complacency? And what would you say to them if so?
I don't know if I'm overly hopeful that the tide is turning among people my age. I do think there are a lot of people who have had their eyes opened. That being said, there's still kind of a lot of, for lack of a better word, indoctrination among people my age, which is pretty evil, right? Dangerous than the deceivers, because we don't know right from wrong if you're never being taught right. And so I will say I'm not overly confident about my generation, but maybe I can just identify as like a different generation. But I do think
Why not?
I'll just identify as not a Gen Zer. That sounds ideal right now. But I do think the majority, of course, the majority of the general public, right? Even among the Democratic Party, not just among Republicans, the overwhelming majority of the general public can acknowledge and is acknowledging, at least in the realm of this issue in sports, it's gone too far. I think in regards to parental rights and school choice, people understand that this has gone too far. And so I'm hopeful that the tide is turning. We're seeing a lot of progress. Actually, just this morning, there was a Senate Judiciary hearing where Charlie Baker was one of the witnesses, who's the president of the NCAA. And, you know, it was about NIL, but of course, there were some questions asked about this whole issue of men and women's sports, to which he said, I do not defend the mistreatment of female athletes that occurred at that 2022 NCAA championships. And he's vying for other options in regards to the locker room. And so that was hopeful to hear. I still think he kind of avoided a lot of the controversy and questions, which is, I'm sure he was well prepped to do that. But I think the tide, all that to say, I think the tide is turning because courage begets courage. And there's strength in numbers. And so as more people are emboldened and inspired to stand for the truth and reality and fairness, and really this argument based around being pro-woman, pro-children, pro-parental rights, more and more people will follow suit.
I will say that I believe more young women, in particular women, men too, I hope, but I hope young women have seen you take the slings and arrows, and you have. I mean, you've been chased, now aggressively chased down on college campuses, and people have harassed you to the point they've been arrested over it. You've faced some stuff that most of us do not ever want to face physically. And I hope that some people out there, maybe young people, are inspired by it. Here you still stand and you're unmoved and you continue on.
Absolutely. And that's certainly the message that I'm receiving. Again, I get them all the time. Young girls saying, thank you for doing what you're doing. You've inspired me to do X, Y, Z. And again, that's why I'm doing what I'm doing. That's why I'm not scared of the protesters or the opposition or the backlash or the name calling, because that's what it is. Okay. It's name calling. Even in regards to Penn State, what they chanted, the full 30, 45 minutes, hour, however long I talked, what they chanted the entire time was can't swim, and like, be so for
your
real.
championship women's
And
swimmer.
that doesn't even make sense.
Yeah, it's just the
Well, the
stupidest
thing
chant.
is, like, I would challenge any of them to a race, even the men, which actually disproved everything I'm talking about, and I know who would win. So,
Right.
yeah, it's a disingenuous argument, and it's merely name calling. And when you realize that, when you can understand that it's nothing dissuading from the argument or dissuading from logic or reasoning or science or common sense or truth, again, you realize what their argument is based in, and it's feelings, and it's emotion. And when has it ever been a bright idea to create policies and elect leaders based off of emotion? Never.
Riley, I know a couple of things about you. Number one, I know you and your husband are hunters, and you're going to go enjoy some of that. So I hope you go do that.
Yes.
And I know something else. Next year, I'm going to keep it a secret because maybe you don't want to say now. But next year, I'll just say it's my sincere hope we welcome you to the foundation physically and introduce you to this audience and the team here at the Herzog Foundation. We'd be honored to have you, and I think there'll be cause to do that. And that's all I'll say for now.
And as a mom, what you're
there.
doing, I do want to say thank you. Just what you're standing up for girls like my daughter, kids in general, like just my sons. I am so grateful for that, and I appreciate it on every level. And it's people like you actually that encourage people like me to do what is right, knowing it is right.
Well, I appreciate that very much. The support is tenfold anything negative that I receive. And I appreciate the work that you guys do. I know how hard it can be to be unwavering and to be unapologetic, but it's necessary. Unfortunately, it is. And so I appreciate the work that you guys do and really highlighting a lot of this, especially as it pertains to education and what this means for parents and, of course, for young children.
Riley, happy hunting. We'll see you in 2024, I hope.
I'll be there. Thank you, guys.
What an awesome opportunity today
Impressive lady.
to talk with her. I know you've had the chance to speak with her a few times. I have not. I'm always on the listening end. And I literally today was like, going to talk to Riley. Like, I was so ready for it. Just literally like I told her as a mom. But
I've heard her tell that story a few times, and I forget that other people maybe have never heard her tell that story. So I'm glad I asked her to retell it. You were really taken aback.
The image of standing on a block, sharing that space with him, and being told, no, we're going to give it to him. This is the photo op we want. This is what we've been told to do. We're sorry. She asks questions and they do not have good answers for it, which I think is the issue across the board anyway. But in no other world, in no other sporting event, think about all the times we've stood with our kids or been with our kids at events. You two tie down to the hundredths of a second. Shove on over, Riley. We're going to put him up on the, we're going to do this. That would not happen. There would be another trophy being made. There would be a scramble. We're going to showcase you both. What an amazing accomplishment. Even that, I think I could stomach a little bit more than get down. You with the female body parts. We want him. I literally sat here thinking, that's a lie. No way.
And I got to pray on, look, this K through 12 education that we talk about, Riley's it's not necessarily her lane.
Right.
She's kind of in the business of protecting women's sports, but I was trying to kind of encourage her to think about the day she has children and what she might do, and I suspect she may find herself in the sphere. I don't mean to speak for her, but I suspect she may find that she'd educate all those kids that she wants to have
and maybe
in
that's
Christian education.
Maybe that's the benefit in a lot of this is that we're all being forced to look at a lot of scenarios that 5, 10, 15 years ago we never would have imagined, and we're thinking forward. I don't really right now, as a mom of an 18, 17-year-old and 15-year-old, want to think about being a grandparent because of the logistics that involves.
Yeah, me either.
You know what I mean? But I am thinking about being a grandparent because whether that's 5 years, 10 years down the road, or 15, it doesn't matter. I want to make sure, obviously, that we're supporting our kids and what they're doing, but supporting our grandkids down the line. I want to make sure that we are equipping ourselves with the right tools and the base in faith and spiritual information in order to combat whatever craziness may come our way, because I do not feel like this is slowing down. I feel like this is a trend that is speeding up, and I want to be there and ready for when that time comes. So maybe this is her sitting in this position as a 20-something-year-old, newly married, thinking, I'm not ready for that, but in 5, 6, 7, 8, whatever, I want to know what I'm going to do.
I mean, I'll give you an example. And again, I probably shouldn't, but I don't care. Our daughter Anna, when we put her in a Christian school, she had a little Instagram account, and it bugged me to no end. It bugged me to no end, but I knew, I had faith. I prayed about this. She put those stupid pronouns in her Instagram account, the she, her thing.
Right.
I hated it, and I wanted to ask her, why have you done this? But I thought, no, you know what? I'm just going to let go of this for a second and see what happens. And on her own, inside of 1 year in Christian school, she took them off. They're gone.
Yep.
And I don't know what that. Like someday I will ask her, but I don't want to make a deal of it now.
No, and it's good because I also see our boys kind of the same way. They don't hold with a lot of it. They're not running around. They don't have those pronouns sitting
They're
up
not
there.
antagonistic.
They don't play with it.
They're not fighting, but they're not participating.
Yes.
And that's all you need as a parent, in my view. You don't have to go out and fight it, but let's just not participate.
Right. And she made a really good point, too, that I think is super important as parents for anybody, but as parents, everybody, to use the word fight, everybody's going to fight differently. Everybody has a different role. Everybody has a different place that they're going to find themselves, kind of like, she referenced Paul in Acts. Everybody is going to have something different to do. and they're equipped to do it. They're ready to do it if they kind of lean into that guide, that Holy Spirit guide of this is what I'm supposed to be doing. And I want that to be the message for whether you're 15, whether you're 25, whether you're 45, that you, wherever you're being called to push back on this, whether it's a boycott, whether it's I'm not going to go to this store, whether I'm going to show up when there's a speaker or whoever it is, then you do it.
Or if you decide to speak out yourself,
or
yes. Like she did.
Yes, I do. I think that's very impressive what she did.
Well,
what she's doing.
I have had the privilege of getting to know her, fresh out of that pool versus Thomas, as she calls him. And I've seen her over the last year and a half, 2 years, marry and blossom into this incredibly determined and focused speaker. I mean, and she's a relatively, new college graduate. She's a younger woman.
Right.
It's extraordinary to watch how, out of the frying pan into the fire and how she's being refined and used.
Yes. Well, and that's what I also was kind of thinking. The mom heart in me was thinking, I want to be praying for you so much, because she is taking on and handling pushback and blowback from people in ways I do not know. Like, it makes me a little embarrassed at the times that I'm like, I don't really want to speak up. And yet here she is. And so I think that is an encouragement. That should be an encouragement for all of us.
And by the way, a lot harder with women her age than women your age, is it not?
I would say guess. Overall, probably, maybe equally hard, but in different ways. I think there's, I'm far more comfortable in my skin now at my age than I was at her age, but there's still that mentality of the, we're all in this, we're all have to go along, to get along kind of thing. And I don't necessarily buy that, but I give her every prop in the world for what she is doing. And I will be, and I would encourage everybody listening to just say some prayers for her, because she's chosen where she's at. She's choosing to do this and continue on and alter her life in a way. Like she said, she was going to be in dental school. This is not dental school. This is impressive.
What is it? You say, tell God your plans, and He'll laugh.
And He'll laugh.
So with that, leave us a review. Let us know what you thought of this episode, and I'll just tell you, stay in touch with Making the Leap, because, as I said, that won't be the last you've heard of her, and I'll just leave it at that. But I hope you enjoyed the episode. I know we sure did.
Absolutely.
And we'll see you next time.
Making the Leap is a podcast presentation courtesy of the Herzog Foundation. Please rate and comment on the show, as well as subscribe so you never miss an episode. And we'll see you next time on Making the Leap.